Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Q2 2020 summary call. I'm Fernando Gutierrez, CMO at Dashcore Group. Now I'll pass the microphone to Ryan so he can start presenting.
All right. Hi everyone, welcome. As Fernando said, this is the second quarter 2020 Dashcore Group summary call. I'm Ryan Taylor, I'm the CEO of Dashcore Group, and I'm joined on the call by several members of Dashcore Group, including Fernando Gutierrez, our Chief Marketing Officer, Glenn Austin, our Chief Financial Officer, and Bob Carroll, our Chief Technology Officer, all of whom will be presenting a portion of the presentation today. So moving to the agenda, we're first going to share a set of prepared remarks and accompanying slides, followed by a question and answer session. We collected questions ahead of the call, and we're going to aim to address those during the Q&A section. We also try to answer as many live questions as we can from the chat within the time allotted, and we'll answer any remaining questions in the queue in written form after the call. Some of the questions we did get ahead of time, we feel the presentation answers, so we may skip over some of those. Keep in mind, this call is intended as an update on the core team's overall strategy and operations, so questions should ideally reflect that intent, and some of the more technical questions that do arise, we may choose to answer those in written form after the call, just to keep it on task here. So our goal for the call is to provide an update on our operations and development, to review performance data of the Dash network overall from the second quarter, and to discuss some other relevant community topics, which we'll get to. As with all of our quarterly calls, we're going to start with a brief overview of the Dash network and Dashcore Group's strategy. We'll also discuss the Dash network's latest performance metrics, which remain strong this quarter. Glenn will walk us through an update on Dashcore Group's financials, including our balance sheet and income statement. Bob Carroll will provide an update to our technology roadmap, and Fernando and I will also provide some updates on our progress against our growth plans. Starting with the market overall, the second quarter of 2020 saw total market cap of all digital assets increase about 45% from 179 billion to 260 billion during the quarter. Bitcoin's dominance remained stable at about 65% of that total. Dash's market cap increased by approximately 6% during the second quarter, and the market cap ranking decreased from 20th to 22nd. Year to date through Q2, the total market cap of all digital assets has increased 35% from 192 billion to 260 billion. And year to date through Q2, Dash's market cap has increased 71%. The Dash network continued to experience strong growth in terms of user activity. Year-on-year growth remained strong across a range of key metrics. And in particular, we continued posting transaction activity increases both year-on-year and quarter-on-quarter. Excluding the estimated effects of stress tests, we hit another new record for the number of economic transactions this quarter and a new record number of active mobile wallets. We also saw a substantial increase in our use of private send, which was up about 30% in the quarter to hit a new record. Our growth in median transaction counts per day increased to a new record of over 19,000 economic transactions per day. That represented about a 15% increase over last quarter. And in the seventh, and this is, by the way, the seventh consecutive quarter of growth in transaction activity. It's the fifth consecutive quarter of hitting new record highs. And so in summary, Dash is being used more frequently by a growing user base. But the biggest news that we plan to share today is regarding what's coming up next. We're in the final stretch for the completion of both Dash Platform and Dash Pay. Just yesterday, we released Dash Platform version 0.14 to EvoNet, which is our public test environment for Platform. And we now have only 4 releases remaining before we release Dash Platform to Testnet, which is our mainnet staging environment. We're extremely excited to be able to share with everyone listening today that we plan to release Dash Platform on Testnet next quarter. Today, Bob Carroll will walk us through more detail and the updated roadmap for Dash Core, Dash Platform, Dash Wallet, and Dash Pay that will take us to that milestone. As with all of our quarterly calls, let's start off with an overview of Dash. If you could flip to the next slide. Our goal is to provide a greater degree of financial freedom for everyone by providing the world with better money that's natively digital and enables users to move their money seamlessly. Dash is making payments fast, easy, secure, and inexpensive. Our brand identity continues to focus on the individual with your money, your way, highlighting the benefits of Dash. We're targeting individuals, businesses, and developers by addressing problems we see in the payments industry that cryptocurrency and Dash's speed in particular is well suited to address. The network operators or masternodes are another distinct group with unique needs that we also serve. We attract users with a borderless, fast, inexpensive, secure, and easy to use payments network that addresses many of the problems users face when using traditional payments. We feature instant payments for less than $1 with enhanced user security and privacy. These features make Dash ideal for both online and point-of-sale purchases. The Dash network consists of many components, including the Dash currency, which is used to facilitate payments, and the network upon which the users interact. With the upcoming release of Dash Platform, we're working towards greater flexibility for developers by introducing the ability to build and easily integrate applications for use in the Dash network. We think these are components that are necessary to effectively compete within the payments industry, deliver value to our users, and differentiate ourselves within the broader cryptocurrency sector. So on the next slide, Dash Core Group's growth strategy not only is focused on a great product, but also credible paths to growth in a variety of markets. The markets we're targeting are those with the greatest need and greatest fit for cryptocurrency, and Dash especially due to our unique features such as instantly confirmed transactions. These markets tend to be underserved by existing payment systems. First, with hyperinflation, Venezuela continues to be a great market for Dash, not only because of inflation, but because we solve many practical limitations of the local payment system. Inflation there remains above 3,000% annualized in the local currency. Dollarization is becoming widespread, but due to a lack of $1 bills and small change, Dash stands out as a solution with little friction for consumers and retailers. Remittances are a natural fit for cryptocurrency, but Dash differentiates itself here with low fees and fast transactions compared to alternatives. In terms of crypto trading, here Dash is improving the movement of value between exchanges using our instant send and chain locks technologies, which can enable arbitrage trading, rebalancing across exchanges quickly and inexpensively, and many other benefits for traders. We're seeing Dash usage in other areas as well, which we'll talk about in more detail later during the growth slides. As we build products to address these markets, we're cognizant of the fact that we focus most of our efforts on functional aspects of the product while ensuring we include a mix of reliability enhancements, ease of use, and delightful fun surprises to keep the user experience fun and engaging. Dash Platform is going to profoundly extend the capabilities of the network. The version currently on EvoNet allows developers to deploy their own applications and data contracts, and we've seen a number of interesting prototype applications from our community of app developers, as well as ideas of how existing partners can leverage platform capabilities, which we've been working with them on. On the next slide, we'll get into some of the market performance of Dash. Price volatility fell for Dash throughout the quarter and was in fact one of the 4 lowest measurements we've observed since the coin was created. Each of the other 3 occasions volatility was this low or lower marked the start of rapid price increases. So I'm hopeful that the lack of volatility is a signal that we've reached a market floor. Dash's daily volatility was highest in April and hit the lowest level since June. Or since 2016 in the month of June. Across a range of metrics, Dash demonstrated continued growth both quarter on quarter and year on year. Metrics tied to user counts tended to move mostly higher. Active addresses increased about 3%. Wallets installed on active devices increased about 5% to hit another new record. Unspent outputs were essentially flat in the quarter, and addresses with more than $1 balance increased by about 4%. Metrics tied to usage were mixed. Coming off a 5-year high in Q1 for price volatility, we did see lower activity tied to trading, such as average daily trading volumes and adjusted total payment volume, both of which tend to correlate highly with market volatility. I would say this is expected, given that lower volatility experienced in Q2. Note that trading volumes are only those reported by Messari's real 10 exchanges, which excludes volumes from any other exchange outside of those 10. But it's a more reliable metric than we've been using in previous periods with a lot of wash trading and things making a bit of noise. Transaction counts were strong during the quarter. We prefer median transaction counts over total transaction counts because they're less affected by stress tests and far costlier to manipulate than total transaction count. Median transaction counts increased about 15% during Q1, exceeding 19,000 transactions per day. So that really represents a typical day on the network. Median transaction counts that are economic transactions exclude certain transaction types like Coinbase transactions and private send mixing transactions. Private send transactions expanded to new records in usage, outpacing the general growth rate of the network. That was really good to see. Other similarly purposed networks have generally been growing transaction counts more slowly than Dash. Bitcoin on-chain transactions fell about 4% in the quarter. And while it's impossible to measure Lightning Network usage, capacity expanded about 5% during the quarter. Bitcoin Cash transactions fell double digits, while Litecoin's transaction count growth was pretty robust. Price and market cap grew modestly during the quarter. Price increased 4% and our market cap grew about 6%. We recently posted a decision proposal to the network meant to reduce the growth rate of circulating supply, or the portion of our supply that isn't currently being used to collateralize masternodes. So we plan to start tracking that going forward and reporting on it. It's worth noting that on June 24th, it appears a large exchange created 135 masternodes leveraging customer deposits, which obviously affected the circulating supply growth measurement for Q2. Although we don't believe that event was driven by net new investment in Dash, circulating supply grew about 17% year on year nonetheless, though it obviously would have measured much higher if not for that event on June 24th. On the next slide, you can see a visual representation of some of our key metrics, and these show a pattern of consistent growth in usage and users. The full set of metrics are available in the appendix, including each of the last 5 quarters of measurements so that you can see additional performance trends over time. With that, we'll transition to financials. Glenn, take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. We'll cover our Q2 financials here today. In a departure from previous quarterly reviews, we will do so at a high level, since not much has changed in terms of our financial picture compared to last quarter. So first, let's cover some typical disclosures. All of our accounting is conducted in US dollars to provide a stable picture of our financials. And since we are using mark-to-market accounting for our holdings of Dash, we are not reporting in accordance with US GAAP. All right, so taking a look at the balance sheet, total assets increased 12% to 1.3 million quarter over quarter. As we have been laser focused on rebuilding our core team salaries reserve, a full 2/3 of the balance sheet now resides within that account. If we look quarter over quarter, we see a 37% boost in our core team salaries account. This occurred while most other balances have decreased on a quarter over quarter basis. The compensation reserve net of accrued salary invoices for the month of June currently sits at 2.5 months of compensation expense. So that's a market improvement over last quarter where we're sitting at roughly 2 months. Now, taking a look at the non-compensation portion of the balance sheet. Overall, even though balances in every account declined quarter over quarter, we are in fine shape. We don't need to fund infrastructure or property lease at any point this year. And for legal, business development, and marketing, those are the only non-compensation accounts we'll most likely fund in the second half of 2020. Onto our liabilities. We had roughly $184,000 in accrued expenses. Most of those expenses are for June salaries that had not been paid out as of June 30th. Also, we're holding roughly $64,000 on the behalf of Dash DAO Trust and Dash Japan. Those funds are being held in escrow. In the second quarter of 2020, we generated a net loss of $92,000 after tax. Next slide, please. This is our income statement for the second quarter of 2020. Dash Core Group received revenue of $728,000, which was down 22% from the first quarter. The reduction was due to both a decrease in the average price of Dash quarter over quarter and the lower amount of budget available through the proposal system due to the block reward reduction that happened in Q2. At $655,000, 80% of our expenses were related to compensation. Overall, compensation expense was higher by 7% compared to the first quarter. This increase was primarily driven by reinstating volunteers who had previously offered to significantly cut their salaries during times of budgetary pressures in the first quarter. We also had $161,000 in non-compensation expenses in Q2. Non-compensation expenses were primarily driven by spend in business development, general and administrative expenses, as well as professional fees. Business development funds were spent on a number of significant integrations, and Ryan will cover those business development successes later on this call. On the general and administrative side, most of the $40,000 was spent on infrastructure invoices. And on the professional fee side, we had costs related to interactions with regulators, our standard legal costs, as well as a small portion of money allocated toward outside accountants. Obviously, travel and conference expenses were virtually non-existent given the worldwide COVID-19 situation. In Q2 2020, we recognized a loss of $4,000 as a result of the depreciation of Dash held on our balance sheet. This loss is generated by a timing difference between receiving the funds from the network and the lag it takes to liquidate the Dash in the open market. As I've previously mentioned, net loss was $92,000 in Q2. Another topic we wanted to address during this call is our tax payments to the United States federal and state authorities to allay any fears that our current setup is not tax efficient. Since the beginning of 2017, through June 2020, what we did is we divided the net payments made to the federal and state government in the US by the total revenue that Dash Core Group received from the Dash network. And our effective tax rates on the funds we receive from the network is 1.7%. This is an extremely low number, and it demonstrates that our current legal entity setup is optimal from a tax perspective, while allowing us to continue to reap the benefits that a for-profit organization has over a nonprofit here in the US. Okay, well, jumping back to our financials. In summary, our current situation continues to be stable. In the second quarter, we saw very little in terms of the volatility in the price of Dash, as Ryan alluded to earlier. We were also able to increase our compensation reserve during the quarter, mostly by submitting a supplemental compensation proposal to the network in lieu of asking for funding for non-compensation accounts. At the current price of $73, we're roughly break even in terms of how much revenue we receive from the network relative to our spend. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Bob, to walk us through our tech update.
Great. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that. And the main focus of my presentation is always to review the prior quarter's accomplishments. And it was another great quarter. I find myself saying that on every call, but that's because it is. both on the quality and the quantity of the work accomplished. During the prior quarter, the core development team delivered Dash Core version 0.16 to testnet in mid-June. That includes a minimum protocol check for masternodes that will provide an increased level of reliability for the network. We implemented a set of changes to address performance issues that had been observed during some stress testing. And we've also implemented over 600 backports of Bitcoin version 16 releases. The platform team continued to deliver regular releases during the quarter to EvoNet, and that's on the 6-week cycles that we had previously committed to. In Q2, we delivered versions 12 and 13. Some of the key features delivered last quarter include the initial implementation of the credit system, fast identity recovery, and the merging of Dash Drive and the state machine. And we enabled chain locks and instant send on the EvoNet network. We also delivered updates to our SDK with new versions of Dash.js and WalletLib. For mobile, the second quarter was a strong quarter, and we had both updates to both of our native app wallets. Our existing Android and iOS wallets both had 3 updates delivered to the app stores during the quarter. We implemented complete support for the BIP70 payment protocol, as well as many enhancements for stability and performance improvements. Our next major release of our mobile wallets will include the long-awaited DashPay features. During Q2, we finished development for username registration. This code is available in our public repositories on GitHub. And to demonstrate that work, we participated in an AMA and shared this feature with our community. So in summary, for the second quarter, I just really want to thank every member of our delivery teams at DashCore Group for their collaboration, their standard of quality, and focus on getting products pushed out to the network at a consistent and reliable pace. We're truly seeing the benefits of the agile development processes that we've been adopting over the last couple of years, and you can see it as we continue to deliver. So let's look at the next slide, which is the roadmap. And I'm going to cover each of our 3 development teams, first core, and then platform and mobile, looking at the next 2 quarters of delivery. In the past, we've provided guidance for the current quarter only. However, having matured as an organization, we will provide today guidance for the next 2 quarters of our roadmap. And this is why I presented the previous slide with just our prior quarter's accomplishments. We're using a familiar format, so you've seen this before on other calls, but it's all now forward-looking. In the past, we've only had a portion of this dedicated to upcoming deliverables. So for core, this quarter we'll see a version 0.16. We'll see it migrate from testnet to mainnet. We're currently testing a second release candidate, and we'll have a third release candidate to include these block reward reallocation changes. We're waiting for the proposal period to end and voting to conclude before making this available on testnet. And once testing is complete with this change, we'll move version 0.16 to mainnet and begin adoption. Version 16 is a mandatory upgrade for masternode owners due to the inclusion of the minimum protocol check. We also have some updates to the Core Wallet UI, which are being made this quarter, which were developed some during last quarter, but have not yet been fully merged into version 16. Thus, I marked this with an asterisk, and I have a separate slide on to discuss the UI that you'll see in the presentation a bit later. Since deploying core version 0.16 to testnet, we've made significant progress on the Bitcoin backports for Bitcoin Core version 17, which will be included in our next major release. So once version 16 is deployed to mainnet, we will be fully engaged in development for Dash Core version 0.17. This will include some items necessary to support the platform's release to testnet next quarter, including a new special transaction for asset locks and a 100-member quorum for consensus. These are required to facilitate the full implementation of the new credit system. Since Dash Core will be a dependency for Dash Platform, we will be delivering version 0.17 to testnet next quarter. And let's move on to look at the platform. This quarter, we have 2 releases scheduled on our 6-week cadence, versions 14 and 15. Version 14 was deployed already this quarter. It was deployed yesterday, and all components and repositories have been updated. Our second release for the quarter will be deployed in early September. The features targeted for release this quarter include the ability to handle versioning of the Dash Platform protocol, syncing between the core chain of financial transactions and the platform chain of data, as well as proof of service. To support our developers, as well as those in the community, we've invested in a more robust test suite, and those are some changes you can look forward to as well. And finally, this quarter we'll be publishing 2 Dash improvement proposals, or DIPs, and we'll do those this quarter for both the Dash Platform naming service, as well as for identities. Next quarter's calendar allows us to deliver 3 new releases, which will be numbered version 16, 17, and 18. And we'll publish more DIPs next quarter on additional components of Dash Platform and finish all the major features of the Dash Platform. You can see the list of items in the center box, and most significant is that we will be able to release Dash Platform to testnet next quarter. We're excited to have reached a point in the project to provide this forecast. And testnet, as you know, is our staging environment before going to mainnet. We're not able to accurately predict the duration of testing on testnet, but we will give it the appropriate amount of time to address any bugs or issues that might come up with the migration process. So let's move on and take a look at the mobile roadmap as well. They have another great quarter ahead of them. There will continue to be improvements made to our existing native wallets to support changes made in the base operating systems of Android and iOS. In addition, we found additional optimizations for how we sync the mobile devices, improving both performance and stability. For our DashPay wallet, we will finish up development of both contacts and notifications this quarter. I'll give you a sneak peek of that in a few minutes, and I think you'll enjoy that. We will also finish development to allow the wallet to pay by username to a contact in your contact list. And since we received good feedback from the last AMA and demo that we did for DashPay, we'll be doing another one this quarter. Next quarter, we expect additional maintenance work to be delivered for our existing wallets, as well as an integration of another on-ramp to Dash within our Android wallet. For DashPay work, we have been strategically working on the harder work first in that project, which is the core transaction functionality of the wallet. Next quarter, we'll hit the home stretch and complete the development of both the profile and settings area of the app. And we will commit to another AMA and demo next quarter to demonstrate our progress. So in summary, you're looking at the most current roadmap for Dash Core Group. There's a ton of development which is going to occur this quarter. We've doubled our visibility of our plans for the community to see, and we'll continue to deliver quality releases across all products each quarter. And you can now see the major milestone of Dash Platform on testnet next quarter. So now let's take a look at the core wallet improvements that I had mentioned before. There's a short demo video of the upcoming UI changes in our core wallet. You can watch that as we go through this. We're in the process of reviewing and merging the code and have not yet announced whether it will be included in the upcoming release of Dash Core version 0.16. This update includes a nice set of enhancements as well as some long overdue improvements to the graphics. As the video is playing, you'll see many of these. We've implemented a responsive design to properly handle the resizing of the wallet window, which will also better accommodate various monitor resolutions. We're now able to handle fonts better with the addition of our official Dash font Montserrat. We can easily adjust font sizing and weighting with easy to use controls, as you're seeing right now. We've really reviewed the entire wallet and implemented state handling to properly display fields and controls in disabled, enabled, and hover states. And that was quite inconsistent in the wallet in our current version. And lastly, through code contributions from a community member, we have added a new private send tab to isolate the sending function with previously mixed funds. This will only appear if private send is enabled in the wallet settings. So in general, as you look through this, we've cleaned up graphics in here throughout the wallet to be consistent throughout the wallet, from screen to screen and window to window, as well as across all operating systems. You'll see a new calendar widget. You'll see new checkboxes, maximize and minimize icons, and many more improvements and consistency for a better visual display. So I'm sure that those who regularly use the Qt wallet will be pleased with this new update. And let's go to the next slide. So here we have a sneak peek of what the developers have been working on already this quarter in regards to searching usernames, making contact requests, and receiving notifications. You may have seen design demos in the past of this functionality, but I shared this with you today to help you understand the real progress we're making. So this is real code working in a real environment, and they're not just designs inside of a design app. Consistent with our strategy to deliver DashPay functionality within our existing native wallets, this is within a branch of our native wallet native client code. And the designs have continued to improve throughout our project, and this includes all of the latest designs that are for both user interface as well as user experience. So the code for this is actually available in our public repository on GitHub. We're running all the components necessary, including core, platform, and libraries on a dedicated DevNet specifically for our mobile team. So we'll have a more polished version of a similar demo for our AMA this quarter to be used for marketing and education purposes. But I wanted to share with you live working code today to let you see that. So in closing, we had a very good Q2, delivering according to our schedule. We have a solid roadmap with greater visibility for the next 2 quarters. And we're pleased to announce the major milestone of reaching testnet next quarter for Dash Platform. And I'm overall just wanted to share and publicly thank our development teams and really all of our delivery teams that work from QA to development, product management, that we continue to see increases in our productivity and collaboration. And that's evidenced in what we're demonstrating today and sharing today. So with that, I'll turn it back over for the next update.
All right, thank you, Bob. So the next section that we'll go into is the growth section, where we'll cover both business development and marketing. We have a couple of small teams dedicated to growth, and so we'll go over kind of what they've been working on. You can flip to the next slide. It was a challenging quarter for the business development team, particularly regarding Venezuela, which was heavily affected by COVID-related closures throughout the entire quarter. Nonetheless, you can see here that they accomplished quite a lot during the quarter. Starting with Venezuela, we hosted an event aimed at onboarding freelancer platforms and freelance workers, to enable those freelancers to begin directly earning Dash. When a worker earns an income in Dash, the easiest path to spending is directly with a merchant. And so we want to encourage more of that activity of earning Dash natively. Workers that are paid in Dash don't face the friction of acquiring it in the first place, and that creates value for Dash accepting merchants when there's a growing population looking to spend their Dash directly. There were many leads from the event that we're now actively pursuing. Of course, with the country largely shut down, it's been a little more difficult than we'd like to keep those conversations progressing at the pace that we'd like, but we are working with many of those leads. Ernesto remained in communication with local cryptos following what you might remember was a multi-currency poll that they held back in Q1 to determine the next coin that they integrate into their non-custodial peer-to-peer trading platform. You may recall that Litecoin narrowly won the poll with Dash a close second. Now, the importance here is that local crypto's top market is Venezuela, and they were impressed with the enthusiasm of the Dash community, both there and globally. Through our continued engagement with them, local cryptos recently announced that Dash would be the next coin that they're going to integrate. So we're going to be working with them to see that integration completed. That'll be a great expansion of our peer-to-peer trading capabilities, particularly in Venezuela. So I want to thank all the Dash fans around the world that voted to help make that integration possible. Really couldn't have done it without you and gotten the attention of local cryptos the way that we did. The biggest news in Venezuela, though, was our integration into Megasoft. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, point-of-sale software provider in the country. Megasoft serves many of the largest merchants in Venezuela with their merchant server platform. That includes supermarkets, pharmacy chains, hardware stores, auto parts stores, cinema chains, and department stores. In total, there are over 20,000 retailers served by Megasoft. So we look forward to working with them to add major retailers to our system, to our ecosystem in Venezuela. And we've already started that process with conversations with some of their customers. For our trading strategy, we made significant progress in a number of critical areas. Liquid and KuCoin added instant send deposits, while Whitebit added Dash staking. Reciprocity Trading is an OTC desk that's seeking to use Dash for remittance purposes, particularly due to its speed. However, there's other benefits here too. Since Reciprocity has much lower minimums than most OTC providers, it also expands OTC access to a larger number of our users. So if you prefer to trade OTC but haven't been able to meet minimums with other OTC desks, Reciprocity may be an option for you. Into the Block is an analytics tool for traders. We added their services to the Dash.org website with some customizations for Dash, along with the integration itself into their own platform. There are some great metrics available there for free, and I'd encourage you to go check those out. Binance now offers a savings program that pays Dash users up to 7% with a 1 Dash minimum deposit. OKX and Huobi launched perpetual swaps, and Chainalysis added support for Dash on their AML platform. Chainalysis counts over 80% of the top exchanges as customers, so being supported on their platform helps ensure that Dash continues to be supported on major exchanges going forward. And they're well respected within the industry, so that integration certainly helps maintain our access on key exchanges, as well as may help us address some of the exchanges we aren't yet listed on. So we're excited about the capability to have those conversations with the exchanges. We held a number of AMAs with exchanges during the quarter. You see some of those there, as well as with our sub-Saharan payment partner, AnchorPay. And we also relaunched the eGifter Dashback promotion. Dash is really uniquely positioned on the eGifter platform because they support instant send. So if you didn't know, you can actually enter in an exact amount on eGifter, for example, to pay a restaurant bill, and receive the gift card for immediate use while benefiting from the discounts offered from buying a gift card and getting Dash back. There were some interesting insights from our integration with eGifter and the first promotion that we ran. During our first promotion, eGifter found that many previous Bitcoin users tried Dash in order to access the deeper discounts that were offered during the promotion period. And it turns out that a substantial portion continued to transact with Dash after the promotion period ended because of the faster transactions, lower transaction costs, and the capabilities that people have to use the gift card platform to make purchases live, whereas that may not be possible with slower transaction times. eGifter also shared with us that the average Dash user on their platform is younger than a Bitcoin user, and a Dash user is most likely to use Dash to purchase video game cards, which skews differently than other use cases. And we hypothesize that might be due to the speed of the transaction, and so that the user can utilize those video game cards for immediate use. We also went through Messari's registration process during the quarter. This is a primary data source that feeds many other websites. And so the information there is now updated, as well as the information that they then feed into other websites. ReadyRater launched their premium subscription and launched their Dash wallet support. Dash is the exclusive payment network for the service. They continue to grow rapidly and expose esports gamers to Dash. Tens of thousands tuned in to watch the first tournament that they sponsored, and Dash was mentioned on the broadcast probably half a dozen times. PlusBit integrated Dash into their global payments wallet this quarter. Luxor Mining added a North American mining pool, as well as their own mining capacity to that pool. And our partner Vega Wallet completed and launched their point of sale system with the first associated implementation to be announced soon. As you can see, Omar and Ernesto had a really busy and productive quarter, and they're doing a lot to grow the Dash ecosystem in what can only be described as pretty challenging times, especially there in Venezuela. On the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about our trading strategy. Last quarter, we did a deeper dive into our strategy in Venezuela, and this quarter, we'd like to update you on our trading strategy as we shift some of our focus there. In the early stages of our trading strategy, we focused primarily on ensuring chain locks and instant send were integrated into more top-tier exchanges. Those features are now supported on Coinbase, HitBTC, Indodax, Bbox, Whitebit, KuCoin, OKX, and a number of other exchanges. And we continue to work on additional integrations, but our focus is now shifting towards developing a broader trading ecosystem. Starting with access there on the left, we're working on regulatory approval to permit Dash to be listed in Japan, New York, and other jurisdictions. Anyone should be free to purchase Dash regardless of their jurisdiction, so we want to make sure that the access is there in these important markets. For retention, one of the keys is expanding options to earn Dash while holding the currency. That includes staking and lending offerings. Under management tools, those are products that reduce the effort for traders and investors that deal with Dash. These include systems like accounting systems, custody, KYC, and AML providers. So really making sure that the tools are in place in order to enable traders or trading platforms to list Dash or trade with it. In terms of liquidity, That includes services like OTC trading services, products or services that deepen order books to keep markets functioning efficiently. Examples here can include liquidity providers, liquidity mining campaigns that attract users to help build new exchanges or new trading pairs. Usage can be enhanced through additional products such as derivatives, brokers, trading bots, and education opportunities. So there's a number of activities that we're pursuing to encourage usage. And really in the near term, we're focusing on completing the existing pipeline of Instant Send and Chainlock integrations. There are still a few more coming. We're onboarding new liquidity sources, and soon we'll be launching a new phase of our communication strategy to really take advantage of everything that we've been building. So the latter part of 2020, you'll be seeing a much more comprehensive strategy and accompanying communication than what you've seen in the past, where we focus primarily on the benefits of Instant Send and Chainlocks alone. Getting all of these components in place took a great deal of effort, and we want to now capitalize on that and do that much more aggressively now. In terms of our outlook, oh, I'm sorry. I think next on the agenda is Fernando. You're going to walk us through some of the marketing updates.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. So I'm going to use the next few minutes to talk about Dashcore Group marketing activities and how they fit into the overall DAO. First, I want to mention the goal, which is to increase the usage of Dash. Then I'll talk a little about the markets we are considering, the types of activities we do to get users in those markets, and finally, more details on those activities and assets and how we do them in the context of the DAO. So the addressable market for Dash is basically everyone, since we're trying to be, we are money. So we need to divide and focus on certain parts to be effective. DCG has been talking about our market strategy for quite a while. In marketing, we follow those same markets, although there are a couple particularities that need to be mentioned. First, most of our tools and assets are not segmented, so we can ignore everything that doesn't fit into those specific markets. The website needs to cater to everyone because it doesn't only cater to DCG, and because of that, we'll cover many things that are not specific to those markets. And we'll keep the messaging in general neutral enough so it doesn't sound alien to an European wanting to buy something with Dash and not worried at all about hyperinflation. The second consideration is that marketing in DCG doesn't focus in the same way in the different markets that DCG is targeting. This is more of a resource constraint. Right now, the marketing team is 2 full-time people, Leon White, aka Strophy, and me, and then one person part-time, Philip Engelhorn, aka Tankfa. So we can't put the resources we would like to every market. So we're focusing on the ones that are more strategic, which are Venezuela, remittances, and trading. In others, we will be more reactive and only support or business development request. Developers is kind of in the middle. That's led right now by technology, but as we approach the release of platform on mainnet, we'll increase our support and try to design specific actions in coordination with our tech team. So now going down to the user level. When we talk adoption, it's common to use a funnel with the different phases in the user will go through in their journey. Here I'm using a very simplified version for time's sake, and also because the funnel is not the same in every market and we are simplifying. Traditionally, we had focused on the top part of the funnel, the phases that are related with people knowing about Dash. We're trying to move a bit deeper into this. In the higher part, you have communication and public relations. Especially for awareness, you need to focus on actions that can get you out of the reach of your current channels. But when we move down the funnel, we'll need to have a more direct contact with the user. We don't do transactions ourselves. We don't sell Dash. We don't even when people use our wallets, it's not a requirement. Some people will use that through third-party wallets. So we don't have a direct control of the user, and we can't break the conversion phase as much as an e-commerce company that knows when the user has abandoned the cart and can do something to target him afterwards. But we're trying to, through business development and by having DaaS accessible everywhere, through education and making sure everything is where it needs to be, we are trying to increase that conversion the moment that people really start using DaaS. Then we're starting to do some actions in the repeat or loyalty phase. Here, many times it's through partners, because again, we don't have a direct contact with some of our users. Some of that is supporting our product organization with things they can do to help our users through our own wallets. And also we are going to experiment with a couple of things. I'd like to mention a loyalty program we're going to launch in Venezuela. It was scheduled for Q2, but because of COVID paralysis, we had to delay to Q3. The idea here is try to provide users with some more incentives to repeat usage of DaaS. There's already some awareness in Venezuela, but we really need to increase the day-to-day presence of the coin in people's lives. Finally, after that, you try to convert your best users into advocates and bringing them into the community. Again, this funnel is different for different markets, but that's the framework we are using to design our actions. Now, moving into putting this into the context of the DAO, we need to consider there's. Oh, sorry. First thing I'd like to say is marketing is probably the most common topic in community proposals since the Treasury system started. Many different proposal owners have different views on marketing and even goals, and that is fine since we are a decentralized project, but many people has complained that there was a lot of lack of coordination and waste. Lately, however, I think many of the teams that are involved in marketing activities around the DAO have achieved a deeper level of collaboration between the different organizations and individuals that are doing these activities. Of course, this is still a decentralized project, and there will always be different opinions, and not everyone will agree with everything, but there are obvious benefits of many of us working aligned. This collaboration happens on two levels. The first one is at the market level. Some of these organizations that you are seeing here that work alongside DASCO Group in marketing activities have a geographically defined scope. That would be the case of DAC Embassy that focuses on Central Europe. That's next Thailand, that's Nigeria, that's Brazil, the different Venezuelan teams. So with these teams, we try to keep an open channel of communication. We have weekly meetings with that are about business development and marketing, because both activities are usually very connected between each other. And we try to accommodate requests from other teams as much as we can when they come with anything for our assets or website or support announcements or do whatever they ask to, obviously with some constraints because of resources. The second level of collaboration happens at the assets and channels level. These would be the case more of the newsroom recently created by Mark Mason and staffed also by Amanda B. Johnson and Danny Sessoms Jr. We work with them in several of our channels and assets, and it's been a great experience, and we're really happy they are around. And also some volunteers from the community that help us in the management of certain activities, without whom we would not be able to have the footprint we have with the team we have. So I'll go first through a few of these assets and channels that we manage more internally, and then I'll go to the others that we serve with others. So first, brand and messaging. This is the beginning of everything. We work on defining them and making sure it stays aligned with our strategy and is consistent everywhere. For this, besides providing guidelines for everyone, we work with all outlets we can reach out to include DaaS information. Sites like CoinMarketCap, with whom, by the way, we are working more closely lately. They are more open to direct contact from the project. So I hope we'll be able to keep the information there more updated than in the past. Or Messari that Ryan just mentioned. That opportunity started in business development, and then the marketing team filled that, and we'll keep it up to date. So the APIs keep serving the best information about DAS we have, or CoinGecko, or there are others like this with whom we have as much contact as possible. Then the second asset that is key for us is the website. It's usually the first thing that someone will see when they already have some interest in that. So it's important that the information there is accurate and that we show them what they want to see as soon as possible. So we keep tweaking it. We make a lot of changes to it on a weekly basis. Recently, for example, we discovered there are some users that would not find what they were looking for their trading activities. So we restructured the menus we had. We created a new top level section for traders and included them information that was difficult to find before. We are still analyzing the new patterns in traffic to see if we still need to do more tweaks or not. The website also takes me to localization, which is something we consider crucial to give access to the widest set of users possible, because not everyone speaks English, obviously. So the website is one of the things we translate, but not only the website, we also translate all the wallets we maintain, the 3 wallets, and also our documentation site. The website is currently translated to 18 languages, I think. In Q2, we launched Greek and Thai. We've recently launched Japanese and Arabic a few days ago, although some tweaks are still going on. We've also been able to finally migrate our translation engine in the website. So hopefully this will be easier to manage in the future, because there was a lot of problems to update certain things. As I said before, we also do this documentation site for users located at docs.das.org, which is great. It's very deep and serves a lot of users when they want to go deeper into DAS. And that's also translated over to a lower number of languages. And then we move to what are some other channels in which the collaboration with other projects is deeper. I'd like to start with public relations. In the past, the network funded a PR team, external, and we work with them. Due to market conditions, a few months ago, we recommended the network to defund that proposal. I think it was January or maybe December last year, because we thought we could not afford that as a network at this time. Since then, we did some of those tasks internally, obviously with a limited scope. But recently, Mark Mason set up the newsroom team, which has taken a lot of this work themselves, and that's been a huge improvement in our previous situation. So they are doing some outreach to media directly. We still do some outreach also, because sometimes journalists come to us, or we already have established relationships, but we coordinate very deeply with the newsroom, so there is no overlap, and hopefully the results, well, I think the results have already been seen. Mark is achieving more placements than we were doing before, and I'm sure this will keep improving in the very near future. Connected to the PR activity is support for our business development and product organization for the announcements we do around product releases or integrations, because this is usually the topic of many of the press releases we do. We still provide the support internally to business development when they need to work with a partner to design something. But the part of the announcements, the newsroom is already assuming it themselves, and that is freeing up a lot of capacity and streamlining things a lot. That process is common for all business development teams, not DCG only. So we've been able to streamline everything, so everything will go through the newsroom. Some announcements don't deserve a press release, or because they are smaller things. Those we'll do directly through other channels, but all the big announcements now go through the newsroom, be from DCG or any of the other organizations that want to take part in these, obviously. Product releases, we're still supporting, but when we do the new ones, we hope that the newsroom will also be very useful to increase the impact of our product releases. By the way, connected to this, there were some questions about Evolution and DashPay release. They're in the Q&A, so I'll skip that and we can talk about that later. Other things we are involved with, and that also the newsroom is connected to some of those, is social media. Here we also have a lot of help from volunteers in the community, whom I really like to thank, people like Kanuka, Macrochip, Sidem, and many others. I don't have a list here, but they help us manage some of the channels, which are not purely DCG, they are DAS, like Reddit, Telegram, things like that. We have a presence in a lot of channels. I can think of Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, Telegram, Hive, Blockfolio, CoinGecko, Publish 0x, probably missing something, a Medium for our blog. So without the help of all these volunteers helping us manage and moderate all the channels, that would be absolutely impossible. By the way, speaking about channels, this is in Blockfolio, we reached 200,000 followers a few days ago, which was a good milestone to achieve, and we are seeing increased engagement there. Hopefully that will keep growing. I mentioned that because it's not a number that it's visible anywhere except in our dashboard. So it's something that was not done before. Finally, we also coordinate our presence in events. Obviously, lately there are not many conferences going on, but we still do some online events, which are not as effective, but we need to keep our project top of mind for a lot of people, and we still need to participate in those. Email, we are doing a few things. We've been able to maintain a sizable list. We want to do more in the near future as we move down the funnels into those usage and repetition phases, because email is something, when someone has given your email, he's already deeper into it and you can interact with him more directly. So hopefully we'll be able to build more around that now that some resources have been freed with the newsroom, and they're taking care of other parts of the process. And that be the quick summary. I'll give it to you, Ryan, now to go with the outlook.
All right, thank you very much. So I think kind of as we wrap things up here, I think there's a lot to be excited about with where Dash is overall right now. Platform and DashPay are both positioned for code completion and migration to testnet next quarter. It seems extremely likely that Dash will be implementing a block reward reallocation in the fall. I'm assuming that decision proposal, which is heavily supported right now, will pass on Sunday. We're also soon rolling out new phases to our trading growth strategy, and we're going to begin benefiting from many new integrations in Venezuela with larger retailers that will allow our user base and merchant base to grow simultaneously, as well as the ability for people to earn Dash more easily directly in Venezuela. We continue breaking new records for usage quarter after quarter, and I expect all of these things to accelerate further when the benefits of platform and the ease of use of DashPay hit our network. We also plan to submit another decision proposal to the network shortly, aimed at improving the effectiveness of Dash's proposal system. We've given separate presentations on that last month. The changes would enable a new level of flexibility to fund proposals while ensuring the network remains focused on value in the proposals that it does fund. If you'd like to learn more, there is a presentation from last month on our YouTube channel entitled Proposal to Improve Dash as a Store of Value. and that goes into much more detail. The entire development team is really rallying behind the completion of Dash Platform and Dash Pay, and it's great to see the progress that we've made to put the finishing line in sight at this point. We've been working for a long time, and with reduced staff and many of our developers volunteering partial or full salary in order to make it happen. So we're lucky to have such an amazing team that's so dedicated to Dash's mission. I also would like to recognize our business development team. I think they deserve special recognition this quarter as well, particularly Ernesto. He was in Venezuela for the freelancing conference that we referenced earlier to expand Dash earning potential within the country when the coronavirus lockdown began. And he's been unable to return home since that point in time. But he and Omar delivered an amazing amount of progress under those difficult circumstances. So kind of in summary, a lot of things are starting to come together here in 2020, both from the perspective of our strategy as well as from the perspective of our technology. And DCG is working hard to make it all happen and come together here in 2020, and I'm proud of the entire team. I hope our users see how hardworking, productive, and dedicated they all are. So really, that's it for today as far as our formal presentation goes. Thank you for listening. We hope you found it informative, whether you're new to the Dash community or have listened to our quarterly calls before. As with all of our quarterly calls, there is an appendix in the slides that you'll be able to access after we release the presentation. They include additional detail on DCG, network metrics, data glossaries, accomplishments from the quarter, and an overview of what each of our teams is working on next. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Fernando to remind everybody of the process that we'll follow for the Q&A session, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, any questions you have, there's been already a couple in the chat. Please type them there. Strophy will collect them. We will start with the ones that were done in advance. Some of them are partially or totally answered through the presentation, but I'll read them anyway, and then we can expand more or less depending on that. The first one is Dash Platform and Dash Pay still aiming for 2020 release on mainnet. Is there a way we can see percentage complete of Dash Platform and Dash Pay? This is a combination of several questions around this topic, by the way, because there were several people asking the same thing. So Bob, I think this one clearly goes for you.
Yeah, thanks. I think it comes clearly for me as well. So I've been consistent in only setting expectations around testnet delivery for all of our products, because that's kind of when it goes out of our hands and we can have better control of the commitment on that. So as shown today on the roadmap, we're aiming for a Dash Platform release next quarter to testnet. So we're all very excited about that. We're still exploring the possibility on Dash Pay on testnet as well. And all the teams are really focused on getting Dash Pay to the community as soon as reasonably possible. So with the target now communicated for platform, we will be able to answer that question more fully on the next quarter's call. Again, going back to what I stated before, this is the first time we've gone out 2 quarters as far as visibility into the roadmap. So what we're talking about is next quarter, and typically we've just in the past only done 1 quarter. So I'll have an ability to commit to that on the next quarter call for Dash Pay and the Dash Pay wallet in particular. Another question, or part of that question we received, is regarding the actual percentage of completion of each project. We do not use that as a primary metric, since there's many ways to define both the numerator and denominator, whether it's hours or epics or stories or points. And I mean, it's really tough. So I think the best metric is the amount of time left, which we just provided greater visibility into, and this shows us in the home stretch.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think probably the intention behind that question is really to get an idea of timing. So I hope that addresses the concern or the question.
Okay, so next question, I think also for Bob. Dash code base continues to diverge from Bitcoin, and as far as I know, the last independent audit was 5 or 6 years ago. Will DCG commit to an independent security audit and code review within the next 12 months? If not, why not?
Sure, I'll take that. It's a great question and a great prompt for us to take action. The idea of an independent external security audit benefits the entire community. Our role as just the steward of the development efforts means obviously that we share the same concern about code reliability and quality and security. So we would need to propose to the network to properly fund the venture and as well as safely convey the results of the audit. And if any of you have been involved in security audits, you would understand what that means, that we need to make sure that security is protected. So I can't commit to conduct the audit if there's no resources, but I can commit to submitting a proposal to the network to fund this. So in short, yes. Thanks again for the question. And we can convene as a team and talk about how to move that forward.
Okay, the third question, this one is clearly for Ryan. In a recent poll Ryan conducted in the MNO channel of the Dash Talk Discord showed 22 MNOs voting for a 65% masternode, 35 miner block reward split, with only 5 voting for the 60-40 split that Ryan ended up proposing to the network. The same poll showed 26 MNOs voting for 100% masternode funded superblocks, with only 9 voting for miners to help subsidize the superblock. In Ryan's upcoming proposal regarding superblock funding, are MNOs going to have an option to vote for 100% masternode funded superblocks, or only the less popular poll option like in the last proposal?
Well, I'd like to kind of take a step back and talk about what the entire poll was about. It was really to get feedback from the masternodes on what their preferences were. There were other questions involved as well. And the questions covered 4 main areas. The first area was the amount that was being reallocated. The second was the timing with which the reallocation occurred. And there was some subtext there about the degree to which the reallocation was front-loaded versus back-loaded within that time period. The third area was around when a proposal was funded, who does that affect, or when an unused portion of the available proposal funding was not used, where does that funding go? I guess there's a couple ways you could look at that. And then the last was really the amount that is being reallocated. So there were several topics covered. What the masternodes voted for overwhelmingly across all of these questions, they voted for a larger reallocation from miners to masternodes. They wanted it faster. They wanted it to occur in a more front-loaded manner. They wanted it to also provide a fixed amount to miners such that as proposals were awarded, that would come exclusively from the masternode portion of the funding. And one of the things that I pointed out early in this process was all of these things are not compatible with one another. The feedback that we got from the poll, there was one other area, by the way, which was whether or not to have a cap on the funding for proposal system. the feedback that we got was that most people preferred to have a cap and not allow the network to infinitely fund or fund 100% of the proposal funding towards proposals. And the median response was the 20% that we had put forward, so that was good. There was also overwhelming support to accelerate the timeline and make the reallocation occur quicker. And so that was actually the strongest level of support out of all of these other options. We incorporated that feedback into the proposal, shortening it by about 30% and front loading the reallocation so that it occurred more quickly within the, most of it occurring within the first year and a half. And so, we really did take the feedback into account. If you start piling on all of these things, all of which are negative for miners, a couple of things happen. One, the proposal that we had originally put forward was relatively neutral for miners, despite the reallocation, the price support that it should provide. It could be argued to miners that this is, neutral to positive for them overall. And I spent a lot of time with our mining community talking to the largest miners I know of in order to, get their feedback on it and support so that we can get a smooth transition to this new allocation model. And I've largely gotten that. But I think if you start to pile on and say, well, we're actually going to do a deeper reallocation, we're going to reallocate that faster, we're going to take away some of the variation that you can benefit from if the price of Dash goes up and the proposal funding doesn't go fully utilized, that kind of supercharges that effect for the miners. And do some of these other changes that just are not, they're beneficial to masternodes, but not necessarily beneficial to miners. What that creates is a dynamic where we lose that miner support. Now, in light of chain locks, one of the common questions I get is, well, can't we use chain locks to force a hard fork upon the network? And the answer is, we've never used it that way before. We've used it to enforce the first seen rule on the network so that valid chain tip can't be invalidated later. We don't have full visibility into what it would be like to use that functionality to actually hard fork the coin. Well, why is that? And the answer is, there's a lot of third-party wallets that don't recognize chain locks or instant send. They aren't capable of detecting them. There are a lot of exchanges that are in the same category. At the very least, you'd want greater than 50% to support to eliminate risks and make the transition a smooth and safe one for our users. And so I think the answer for me is, as you start to pile on all of these requests from the masternodes, I recognize the source of the desire for a larger reallocation. I think, to the extent that we can reduce the disruption and risk to the network and do this in a way that, ensures that the network moves forward cohesively and not chaotically, I think that is a beneficial one, while addressing the goal that we set for ourselves in the first place, which is to reduce the circulating supply growth rate. The plan that we've put forward achieves that without introducing all of these other risks. And so for me, I think, if Dash Core Group is going to put forward a proposal, I don't think it should be on the basis of a popularity poll or a poll from one affected group within the network. It seems pretty obvious to me that if you ask masternodes if they want a larger share of the reward and they want it faster and they want it, it's very clear that they have a lot of incentive to answer that way. my incentive is to do it in a way that is safe and that DCG can stand behind a proposal that we're putting forward that we believe in and believe does not put the network at risk. I believe that, it's our job to put forward, to evaluate the options and to put forward a set of options that make the most sense for the network overall. And so that's what we're doing. And, I've really taken the feedback, and we've done a lot of analysis around this. We've engaged with a large number of the developers on what it could mean or what the risks might be associated with doing something more extreme than what is necessary in order to address the issue that we identified. And we're not there yet. We're continuing to evaluate, but we're not going to put forward a proposal that DCG does not believe is good for the network. That isn't to say that someone else couldn't put together a proposal of their own, but if they're looking for an endorsement from DCG on whether or not that's the right path forward, I don't think we would be willing to provide that.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Next question is, what is the current regulatory situation in Japan regarding DAS private send? How many exchanges trade DAS? Does DCG have a China strategy? What is DCG currently doing in Africa, Brazil, Mexico, and Venezuela? Glenn, I think you were going to start with that.
Sure, I'll take that one. Thanks, Fernando. So as far as the Japan situation goes, we are not listed on any of the exchanges in Japan. Dash Japan, which is headed by Yosuke Suda, was funded earlier this year to get Dash relisted in Japan. And so far, he's been doing a tremendous job planning, strategizing, and engaging with the Japanese regulators. Dash Core Group has been collaborating with him in terms of participating in these meetings. We've met with a number of regulators, lawyers, and accountants, and have been plugged into conversations wherever and whenever Yosuke considers it appropriate. It has been a slow process, but we are moving along, figuring exactly what it is that we need to do in order to get relisted. As I said, we're still, I would say, in the planning phases, so we haven't spent too many resources on the effort. So for example, Yosuke received roughly $30,000 to engage in the effort, and that's being held in escrow at Dash Core Group, and so far he hasn't spent a penny of those funds. So we at Dash Core Group will continue to support Yosuke. However, it is, slow moving in that particular market. And I think in terms of his efforts to get us relisted in Japan, it'll probably take us into 2021. In terms of all the other markets, Ryan covered Dash Core Group efforts in Venezuela and Mexico, where there's been a lot of heavy lifting done in the past quarter. For Brazil and Africa, there are other teams in the Dash ecosystem that are focusing on those regions. And we at Dash Core Group don't want to spread too thin in terms of our focus or to interfere with the efforts of those other teams within that ecosystem. I'm not sure, Ryan, if you have anything to add along for those other regions, but that's my short answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, the key for us is, we have limited resources and we want to make sure that the efforts that we do pursue are successful, and that requires a certain amount of focus. There are synergies between a lot of the activities that we do where one effort builds upon another. And so having that concentration within specific markets is really important for us. With a business development team of 2, you can appreciate that, we can't really cover the entire globe.
Perfect. So thank you both. Next question. It was announced in March 2018 that DCG filed for provisional patents. However, the patent itself is not public record currently, though it will become publicly available within 18 months after the non-provisional patent is filed. Are these patents yet publicly available? Ryan, this one's for you, I think.
Yeah. So the patent was filed. We initially had the provisional patent. There's a limited time period in which a provisional patent sits in that state and before you need to file for the full patent. I think that was done, completed in the spring or no, as far as back as fall of last year. The way the patent office works is they have groups that review each of the patents. And I was told by our law firm that the particular group that reviews the type of patent that we submitted for the category that we submitted the patent in has a backlog of about 2 years from the time when you submit the patent to the time when they review it. Different groups have different backlogs, and at present, this was a 2-year backlog that they were looking at. And what that means is it'd probably be 18 months to 2 years after the filing. And so I think that that puts us in fall of 2021 when this would finally be decided on. Now, in filing the patent, it doesn't matter when it's approved. What matters is the fact that it was filed, and any protection that it would provide would be backdated to the date that we filed it or even prior. So there's no concern with the length of time that they take. We're just in waiting period at this point. Really, the outcome of the patent filing doesn't matter. And I'll explain more about why that is. For most people filing a patent, they're doing it so that they can, protect a product that they're selling or extract patent licensing fees from the marketplace. And so it's really important for them to get the patent approved. In our case, we filed the patent for defensive purposes. What we didn't want to have happen was have someone else look at our technology, copy it basically, and then patent it themselves. That would potentially lead to issues. For example, such a patent holder could approach an exchange and say, hey, you're using this technology without our patent, you have to pay a fee in order to continue listing Dash. And so we would be forced to fight the patent at that point and claim that we had open sourced this material beforehand, and it would be costly to fight such a claim. By filing first, one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be approved or it's going to be denied. If it is approved, that's great. We now hold a patent on behalf of the network. We are still open sourcing our software, and we are still allowing, under that license, anyone to use it. But what that does is it makes it impossible for anyone else to file for the same thing. And if they were to, and it were to be granted in error, we would be able to point to our own patents and say, no, we had patented this technology first. And so it would significantly reduce the costs of fighting this, and if it were to even occur, and it would be very unlikely that such a patent would be approved. If the patent is instead rejected, this actually isn't bad for us either. Why is that? Well, if the patent is rejected, that means that if someone else files for the patent later, and it's very likely that theirs will also be rejected. And if theirs is approved, we nonetheless have a tool that makes it very easy to fight their patent. We had a prior filing. And so we can point to that prior filing and say, look, either our patent was rejected in error, in which case we should have gotten the patent and this other patent is invalid, or the patent office correctly rejected our patent and their patent should also be rejected. And so what this does is it really protects the network from having any type of patent-related attack against it for the technologies that we're rolling out. And it really doesn't matter whether the patent is approved or if it's rejected. We will achieve the goal, which is to make it very difficult for anyone to try and challenge the open source nature of our project. And so that's really the goal behind it. They've been filed. It's really out of our hands at this point. Sometime next year, between the spring of 2021 and the fall of 2021, my guess is because of COVID, this has all been pushed back. Maybe it'll even extend into 2022, depending on whether the patent office has been working. I think that we'll have a good outcome here. So hopefully that kind of addresses the question or the underlying concern behind the question.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Next one, next question is, can we have an Alt36 update?
Yeah, so, really there hasn't been a lot of movement on the situation with Alt36, although, I do think that there are reasons to explore whether or not we can turn the payments back on at this point. Alt36 does continue to leverage the Dash blockchain for each transaction that they do. At this time, compliance concerns from several of our Alt36's partners prevent them from turning on direct payments from consumers to merchants. That functionality was built and it was actually turned on for a brief time, I think in November or December of last year, maybe even into January. Although because of the concerns, they weren't really able to publicize that very much. And subsequently, they really determined that they needed to turn it off in order to maintain banking and other relationships with point of sale providers that they're integrated into. So until those compliance concerns can be adequately addressed, we're kind of in the same situation. Alt36 does continue to work with partners to address those concerns, but so far, getting all parties to align on that fact is kind of difficult to achieve. That the compliance obligations can be met while processing Dash payments. We did integrate with Chainalysis about a month ago, and Chainalysis, I know, is very well respected by regulators. That may reopen the door for some of these conversations, and I hope to be able to re-engage some of those partners soon to see if we can make another attempt at this. The functionality is great. I have seen it seen demos of it in action. I think they had it up for a brief period of time, and I'd like to see it be able to turn back on. They do continue to grow, and if we are able to turn that functionality back on at some point, we're going to have a larger ecosystem with which Dash can be used, because they do seem to be growing quite quickly, adding new dispensaries and so on. So we continue to be in communication with them. This is far more challenging than I anticipated it would be, my hope is with some of these new well-respected AML platform capabilities that we have, that we can reopen those conversations and be successful at it.
Perfect, thank you. Another question, this one's for me. What are the plans for viral marketing strategies to promote and quickly ramp up user accounts once Dash platform is on mainnet? Well, here I'd like to distinguish between two different launches. One is platform, which is a developer product, and then DashPay with user available name service and usernames. So the Dash platform release will be more focused to developers. The DashPay launch will be focused to final users. There are several parts we want to tackle there. First, one would be the traditional PR and things like that. Hopefully by then we can ramp up our efforts through our current newsroom team, internal efforts, maybe even hire some help for that, because this is a huge milestone for us, and we need to make as much noise as possible. Then we have a couple actions that you could call viral marketing strategies that revolve around the community, invitations, and generating some excitement around grabbing your username. The details and mechanics will be finalized once we have the specific mechanics of the invitations and the name registrations finalized. And then those actions can be complemented if there is enough budget available, with some third parties getting involved in different ways. And on top of that, if the budget is still higher, then we would probably do some paid advertising in certain crypto channels that are good for us. But that will depend a lot on the budget situation, the timing of the launch. Right now, we are operating at a very close to zero, very low burn, close to zero. To conserve the limited funds we have, we'll have to fill up the budget later in the year. And depending on the price situation, the budget available for all these will be more or less. So as we approach, we'll be able to give more details on this. There was another question that I don't know why it's not here. I apologize for that because it was done in advance. So I will read it. I think it was in another page and we accidentally deleted. This one is for you, Bob. Are there still plans to organize hackathons, or did the idea become relevant since there is now also the bounty program for developers?
Yeah, great question. I really like the idea of hackathons, and we'll look for opportunities to promote them once platform is complete. We have talked about that as a team before, and I know Dana as well as the developers are all very keen on it. So we previously discussed doing so in coordination with our delivery to mainnet. And so that would probably still be the timing. We've considered both in-person as well as virtual hackathons. And so obviously based on the current travel climate, we may have to look harder at the virtual events. As far as the bounty programs go, I don't think the bounty program replaces it. I think because hackathons are often more about the educational and networking benefits of the event itself. So I think the bounty program is fantastic. I believe they complement each other, and there are still plans to do that.
Perfect. Now we'll jump to the questions from the chat in YouTube. The first one that I have here is, with DashPay soon to be released, what are your thoughts about bringing on a growth team when the budget allows for it? Well, I can answer this. I think we all agree that'd be great. We have very limited resources on the growth area that encompasses business development and marketing. And there are many activities we'd love to do if the budget allowed for. So the more, the better. I don't think, Strophy, I don't know if there are more questions you've passed on. I don't see any more. No, I think that's all for today then. Thank you everyone for joining and spending these 100 minutes with us. Hope you stay around, and well, we'll share the presentation in the forum. We'll also answer any other question in writing once we share the slides.
Thank you very much, everybody.